Hey there, if you're ready to stop chasing and start attracting your ideal customer, then you're in the right place because I just got done putting together 65 pages of everything you need to know to attract your ideal customer in 2025. Now, we're going to walk through it all step by step here today. So we're going to start off with the two types of brands. We're going to help you identify what they are and which one you might be and see which one would be most beneficial for you in the marketplace today. Then we're going to move on to the inverted funnel. This is something I've seen over and over again in the marketplace the past couple of years. We're going to walk through what it is and how it works. From there, we're going to talk about how to appeal to identity within your advertising. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to take all of this and implement it into your approach in the new year. So if that all sounds good, let's jump in. Modern advertising is broken, and it's not because it doesn't work. It can drive sales, but it's because it's creating the wrong kind of brands and at an unsustainably high cost. Here's why. There are two types of brands in the marketplace today. You have impulse brands and you have affinity brands. Now, you've probably seen both of these and you likely have a strong preference for one over the other. Now, on the one hand, you have impulse brands. Impulse brands take advantage for instant gratification in order to drive short-term revenue. Now, you may recognize them from some of their hallmarks. They implement tactics such as short-form content, clickbait tactics, gamification. They use heavy influencer marketing, and they have lots and lots of deals and sell their products at a low price point. This is largely a short-term game. Now, impulse brands tend to pull people away from what they actually want to be consuming just to drive that quick sale. So what does that look like? Well, if you look at a brand like Temu or Shein, they're built on the allure of immediate, instantaneous gratification. They'll sell you trendy clothes and products at a low price point. Now, this approach does very little to cultivate brand affinity or loyalty. It's a win-lose scenario disguised as a win-win. The consumer gets cheap products, which appears as a good thing, but it's at the cost of meaningful engagement and trust. When your product disintegrates after 3 washes, it won't be that valuable. Now, one other thing to mention here, you'll see we have spin the wheel, $3 potted plant situation, $100, you hit the jackpot. It's very much like going into the casino. It feels like very primitive. They're trying to get you to impulsively take action, which is driving revenue for them. Now, we'll talk about the time and place to use these type of tactics, but we'll get to that in a second. So that's an impulse brand. On the other hand, you have affinity brands. Now, affinity brands exist to add value to the life of the consumer outside of just selling them products. You may recognize them by some of their hallmarks, such as community building, having strong values, having storytelling content, and having advertisements that signal their worldview. They operate and sell products at a premium price point, and they implement long-form video. Now, affinity brands are fundamentally playing the long game. Affinity brands are also what people want to be spending their time with, not just buy from. And so what does that look like in the real world? Well, let's take a brand like Patagonia. Patagonia has a department within their company called Patagonia Films. This is where they create long-form content that signals the ideology of the brand. And so Patagonia is built on environmental activism first and product second. And they understand their customers' core values. So instead of chasing trends and doing the same thing as everyone else, they tell stories of adventure and impact. And their content educates and inspires, not just sells. They're not constantly asking the consumer to buy, but rather they're appealing to the ideology and identity of the consumer. The result is a devoted community that doesn't just wear Patagonia, but they believe in the brand. And so here's a transformation from old to new. You go from the impulse brand approach to the affinity brand approach, and here's what you get. You go from chasing customers to attracting customers. You go from competing on price to commanding a premium price point. You go from short-term revenue to long-term relationships, and you go from high acquisition cost, natural word of mouth. Product-focused content, story-driven content, constant discounting to premium positioning, transactional relationships to community building, and mass market appeal to identity alignment. Now, here's the fatal flaw. I've seen this over and over again the past couple of years, and it's what I'm calling the inverted funnel. You see, the traditional marketing funnel follows a natural progression. There's 3 phases. 1, the brand builds awareness. 2, enabling evaluation. And 3, they drive a conversion. So this allows for a deep emotional connection to be made with the consumer. The consumer drops in the top of the funnel. They discover the brand. 2, they evaluate the brand and products to see if they align, and lastly, they convert and purchase. And so each phase of the funnel contains content that's specific to where the customer is in their customer journey. So awareness content is fundamentally different than evaluation content, and evaluation content is different than conversion content. So said differently, not everyone is ready to buy right now. Some people are just being introduced to the brand, while others have high intent to purchase. Therefore, we create different advertising to meet each of these consumers where they're at. So if the consumer is just discovering the brand, we should not be serving them conversion content. We should be serving them awareness content. If the consumer has been through the first couple rungs of the marketing funnel, then we can serve them conversion content. This is direct response content that I was mentioning before, where you're trying to get them to convert right away. But the point is here, we need to prime the consumer. The consumer is primed in the first two stages of the funnel. This content ensures that the brand and consumers are aligned with one another. If the consumer passes through the first two phases, they will likely respond positively to a direct response advertisement and make a purchase. For example, a video campaign with a strong message, so let's take, for example, one of Patagonia's films, followed by a short form video with a strong call to action at the end, and then we retarget them with direct response content after that. That would be the typical funnel. So instead of just meeting the consumer and trying to sell them at first point of contact, you bring them on a journey, you prime them for purchase. And so many brands today have flipped this completely on any relationship with the consumer. It's like proposing marriage on the first date. And so here's what that looks like plotted out. You have prospective customers who are being dropped in the top of the funnel. The only problem is the funnel is completely inverted. So at the first point of contact, they're trying to convert the customer. Very difficult, very expensive, hard to do long-term, and hard to do if you're not Temu, Shein, etc. Okay? That's the inverted marketing funnel. You have the traditional funnel on the other side, which is the three rungs here: awareness, evaluation, conversion. So it allows you to build an emotional connection with the consumer, adding value over time and converting with higher affinity. Now, this inverted approach leads to an increased cost to acquire customers, lower return on ad spend, and an inability to position the brand as premium. Ultimately, what it does is it reduces profits and crushes the brand. So if you're appealing to the masses like Walmart, Fruit of the Loom, etc., it's a fine strategy. What those brands are doing is selling commodity products at commodity prices. They're fundamentally a value brand. But these commodity brands are dependent on huge volume to survive. So if you're targeting a specific consumer with premium products, there's a better way. And that better way forward starts with a strategy. First, we must balance our brand and performance marketing efforts. This means that we are not only producing awareness content or only producing conversion content. Instead, we produce both brand and performance content. And when done properly, this strategy has a profound effect. And so let's take a look at this. This chart was made by Dan White, representative of the data found across thousands of campaigns studied by Les Binet and Peter Field in the long and short of it legendary advertising book. So you have sales plotted out over time, okay? And so it shows you the effect of sales activation campaigns versus brand building campaigns over time. And so what this is showing you is when you launch a direct response campaign, that's what sales activation means here. So when you launch a direct response campaign, you get a short-term, boom, revenue boost, okay? And then it quickly tapers off. And then you get another, boom, revenue bump, boom, revenue bump. But every single time, it quickly tapers off. On the other hand, you have brand building. As you can see, it has an effect, but it's less dramatic. And not only that, it takes longer. And so if you run brand campaigns independent of sales activation campaigns, this is what it might look like. However, there's a better way. And it looks like this. You link the brand and performance content together in synergy with one another. And what this does is it produces outsized returns compared to running the same advertising activities independent of one another. And so let's look at what this looks like. So you're running your sales activation campaigns, but then you link the two together. So you run a brand building campaign in tandem with a sales activation campaign. And what that does is it gives you a higher sales lift. Okay, so you can see the two working together in tandem with one another get you stronger, more beneficial results. And so that's one of the things we need to understand, but that's not it. There's more. It's important to remember that identity drives purchase decisions. At its core, advertising isn't just about promoting products. It's about appealing to people's sense of identity, appealing to who they want to be or become. Every purchase decision carries an implicit question. The consumer asks himself, is this for someone like me? Think about it. There are a million different notebooks that exist in the marketplace. There are countless running shoes that line the store shelves, and every product category has endless options. And so what makes a consumer choose one product over another? The answer is identity alignment. Therefore, we must appeal to identity within our advertising. Let's imagine this for a moment. Here's a situation. You run a notebook company with a premium price point catering to creatives. How do you attract the musicians, chefs, and architects of the world? How do they know that your product is for them? Well, here's how. First, we must identify the personas within our customer base. These are the archetypes of people who purchase your products. So in this case, let's say it's the musician, the creative director, the architect, and the chef. Then we want to determine which are most valuable. Which of these personas drive the most revenue? And we'll use this to inform our content strategy. So knowing this, we take it and develop a creative campaign that highlights the unique aspects of each identity. So let's say, for example, we take the creative director. We then create a creative campaign calling it The First Sketch, focused on creative directors, a docuseries on the ideation process for creative directors. And we make it familiar and relatable to that specific persona. So we focus on those initial notebook sketches that become iconic campaigns. We highlight how ideas evolve from rough concepts into final execution. We show their personal annotation styles throughout the process. And we implement the notebook into all of this content, showing its usefulness and utility in the real world with this specific persona. What does this do? It fundamentally allows the consumer to see themselves using your product. And it helps them answer that question, is this for me? If you're a chef or you're an architect or you're whoever, and you see someone who's just like you in an advertisement, that advertisement is going to be far more resonant with you than otherwise. So that is what we're doing, is we're taking who are our personas, then of those, who are most valuable, and now we're creating content specifically for those people, appealing to those specific identities, okay? And then they'll know, oh, this is for me. And they'll convert with higher affinity. And not only that, it also builds an emotional connection between the consumer and the brand and products. So some of your favorite brands leverage this strategy. We'll go through a couple examples here. So Nike evolved. And let's take a little walk down memory lane here. This is a little story of Nike. So Nike's early advertising focused on functionality and performance. Now, let's think about direct response content, oftentimes focusing on features and benefits of a product. Also representative of many young brands. So they're focused on functionality and performance of their products. And this was common for the industry, focusing on the materials, durability, and features of the shoes. But they had a shift. Their transformation began in the 1980s when they realized something crucial. This was a critical insight that completely changed the business. And that was that not everyone is an athlete, but everyone wants to be one. And this identity insight changed everything. They stopped focusing purely on professional athletes as their target market. And they began speaking to the athlete in everyone. They created content that inspired athletic aspiration. And they balanced performance with emotional connection. So if we look at some of these advertisements, these are some classic Nike ads from the 1970s, focusing on features and benefits. So here's an advertisement from a magazine here, announcing the first shoe made for your knees, okay? From runners. And then they talk about like materials, colors, etc. And then you have for track and cross country, combine the traction of the spike with the cushioning of a flat. It's features and benefits. Now this works, but only to a point. So they made a shift, and here's what it looks like. Just do it. Nike started producing more aspirational advertising. They started focusing on personal growth, struggle, and achievement. And this fundamentally transformed their business. Their advertisements combined product features with emotional resonance. They spoke to both serious athletes and aspirational ones. They created content for every single stage of the funnel, and they built brand equity while driving sales. This resulted in a market cap explosion. They grew to an over $100 billion brand. They transformed from a product company into a lifestyle brand. They command premium prices in a commodity category. Everyone's selling the same things, yet they're differentiated. Think about this for a second. If you have two shirts and one of them has a check mark on it, the other one has a Hanes logo on it, which is worth more? Fundamentally, that is the power of brand. Now, Nike made this shift and it completely changed their business. Look at their advertising here. Find your greatness. Be the hero you didn't have. This is a great advertising from the 1980s here. You'd have to zoom in, but they've got things like your bills, your bank statement, the litter box, your ex-boyfriend, the parking meter, your therapist, et cetera, et cetera. And they say stress management from Nike. Just do it. And then they lead into a little bit more great copy here, but multi-part advertisement. Fantastic advertising. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. Fundamentally, what these folks are doing is they're appealing to identity, and they're signaling their ideology to the world outside. Now, what this does is it attracts a certain type of person while simultaneously rejecting another. Now, that's what a strong brand does. You don't speak to everyone. You speak to a specific type of consumer. You see this with Nike's most recent campaign of winning isn't for everyone. Now, that's a message that's very distinct. It's kind of a hardline approach, and that's wonderful. Nike was kind of fading a bit, and they kind of rekindled the spirit with this campaign tied to the Olympics, and it's really performing quite well right now. And so that's how Nike transformed. But let's look at Apple, another company who implemented this same approach. They understand aspiration as well. Here's how. When Steve Jobs returned in 1997, Apple was nearly bankrupt. But the turnaround started with one question: who are we building for? And the answer was not about specs or features, it was about identity. They needed to appeal to creative professionals, independent thinkers, people who think different. Now, as you probably know, this was a legendary advertising campaign. It's called Think Different, where they featured a bunch of world-famous individuals. And so the transformation happened upon Steve Jobs' return. Apple partnered up with ad agency TBWA, Chet and Day, to produce a disruptive campaign that would reposition Apple as a truly aspirational brand. They launched the Think Different campaign, featuring some of history's most notable figures in association with the Apple brand, not product. In tandem with this, Apple simplified the product line to premium only. They scaled back. They had a bunch of products. They kind of narrowed it quite a bit. They kind of allowed them to focus a bit more. And they created retail experiences that matched the brand value. They balanced innovation, performance with inspiration, which is brand. And then they built a content strategy serving the full marketing funnel. Now, this fundamentally changed their business as well. And so the results were that Apple became one of the world's most valuable companies. They commanding really, really high margins, and they have fantastic brand loyalty, and they created a sustainable premium position that allows them to command premium prices today. And so this reveals a key insight. Don't just sell products. Build a brand, and one that people can relate to and be inspired by. This is because doing so has a suite of benefits. It allows you to have higher margins, reduce customer acquisition costs, increase customer lifetime value, higher conversion rates. It allows you to attract your in-group, have stronger word of mouth, command premium prices, build trust, increase return on ad spend, higher brand loyalty, et cetera, et cetera. There are a whole suite of benefits. Not only that, it increases your share of wallet per consumer. What does that mean? Consumers who are familiar and aligned with a brand give twice as much share of wallet as those who are not aligned. So let that sink in. By attracting customers who share your values, you can potentially double their spend with your business. This is data from Gallup. Those who are familiar and not aligned will spend 23%, whereas those who are familiar and aligned will spend 47% share of wallet. And so with that, 82% of consumers prefer to buy from brands who share their values. And 86% take a brand's authenticity into account when making a purchasing decision. And so this is why we need to build natural attraction. When you show real people using your product in authentic ways, you can create natural attraction rather than forced conversion. You're not interrupting people to sell them something. You're creating content they actually want to consume. This shifts the dynamic. Instead of chasing customers, they come to you. Instead of selling features, you're reflecting values. And instead of competing on price, you're connecting on identity. The result is your marketing attracts people who already align with your brand. They're not just buyers, they're believers. And believers don't need constant discounts and aggressive sales tactics. They become natural ambassadors of your brand. And don't forget, we're creating content for the entire marketing funnel. So here's what that looks like for our notebook brand. You have content that's distributed across the entire marketing funnel. So for example, you'd have a hero video, a longer form piece that helps attract people, bring them into the top of the funnel. Maybe you have a long form article that's on the website, and then you have different images as well. All of this content is the first point of contact with the consumer. All of the consumers who are exposed to this content then get retargeted with your shorter form, middle of funnel content. This is where they're evaluating your products. You're highlighting features and benefits. You're showing folks who endorse your product. Again, more features and benefits. Okay, and then from there you retarget into the conversion portion of the funnel. This is shorter form video with strong call to action, deals, and bundles. And so that's conversion. So fundamentally, as you can see, when we describe affinity, it seems to be a lot of the content that you have at the top of the funnel. When we talk about impulse, It seems to be a lot of the content that you see at the bottom of the funnel. And so fundamentally, you need to find the synergy between impulse and affinity. There's a balance between the two, and that is where the money is made. So this is how premium brands are built. It's not through constant promotion, but through consistent identity alignment. They understand that every piece of content, every advertisement, every touch point is an opportunity to reinforce who their product is for. Remember, people don't just buy what you make. They buy what you represent to them. So your next chapter begins here. You've seen how the world's most magnetic brands build natural attraction rather than chase fleeting attention. You understand that every touch point is an opportunity to reinforce who your product is for, and more importantly, who they can become. A brand fundamentally is appealing to who someone thinks they are or who they want to be. That's how you attract people to your brand. The question isn't whether your brand could command this kind of magnetic attraction. The question is, are you ready to make this shift? And so here's your path forward. We tend to see three types of brands emerge from this crossroads. Number one, you have the status quo settlers. These are the folks who are going to consume this content and strictly consumer. They're not going to implement anything. So they'll return to the hamster wheel of constant promotion, endless discounts, and commoditized competition. They'll keep pushing messages at increasingly resistant audiences and wondering why their marketing feels like shouting into a void. These are the folks who are going to maintain where they're at. They will not take any of this knowledge and implement it. Then that leads you to number two, the partial implementers. These are folks who are going to cherry pick a couple of ideas, maybe dabble in some story-driven content, and they'll get a glimpse of what's possible, but they'll never fully break free from the cycle of chase and convert marketing. They'll remain stuck between impulse and affinity. Finally, you have the true transformers. These are the folks who will fundamentally embrace the shift from chasing to attracting. They build a brand that naturally pulls in their ideal customers, commanding premium prices and creating genuine community in the process. They'll transform their marketing from interruption into invitation. And so which path resonates with you? If you're drawn to that third path and you're ready to transform your marketing from an endless chase into natural attraction, we should talk. We have an offering called the Story Sprint. And it's 8 weeks where everything that we talk about is implemented into your brand and advertising. We map out your brand's unique positioning in the marketplace. We identify which customers you have. We identify those personas and identify which are most valuable. From there, we determine what the content is that we're going to make. We create a complete story stack that adds up to over 50 premium assets that we can produce in a single day. From there, we deploy the content through our affinity funnel system, and we launch a paid advertising campaign to target and retarget your customers. All future revenue exists in those folks who have not yet discovered you. We help you both attract and get in front of those people and convert them with high affinity, allowing you to make more money. So here's the truth. This isn't for everyone. We partner exclusively with premium brands that command premium prices. Companies who are crafting exceptional products in athletic wear, outdoor gear, lifestyle goods, and innovative consumer tech. Our approach is designed specifically for businesses doing over $1 million in revenue who know that they deserve better than endless discounting. So if you're ready to stop competing on price and start commanding true premium positioning, all you got to do is book your transformation call. In this focused 30-minute conversation, we'll do three things. One, we'll map out your current content challenges. What are you currently doing? What's working and what's not? How can we improve upon that? Two, we'll explore your brand's story potential. What stories exist within your brand that we can share with the world? And lastly, we'll determine if the story sprint is right for you. There's no pressure, there's no pitch. We're just trying to gain clarity on whether or not this path aligns with your vision. So if this sounds interesting, something that you want to learn more about, I'll put the link below. You can set up a call. We'll chat through and see if this aligns with your vision, see if this is something that would work for you guys. To recap, we just went through everything you need to know to attract your ideal customer in 2025. We talked about the two types of brands. We talked about the inverted marketing funnel. We talked about how to appeal to identity within your advertising. And lastly, we walked through step-by-step roadmap of how to implement this for your own brand. Again, if any of this sounds interesting, information is available below. Set up a conversation. If not, much more content to come. I hope you guys have a great year.